Have you ever had the joyous experience of being totally obsessed with a piece of media that nobody in your life has heard of, and talking about your interests is like talking to a brick wall? Well, that for me was Viva Piñata. I would religiously sink hours into this game series 10 plus years after its life and death. Well, until my Xbox died, but I firmly believe this is one of the best game series of all time. So why did it never take off as a franchise like it deserved to? Today we're going to take a look into the complete history of Viva Piñata and find out that maybe there is a glimmer of hope that these games will return, just not in the way that you think. Is this just a plot to get people into one of my favourite games? Yes it is. If just one person plays Viva Piñata because of this video, my job here is done. If you like games like Pokemon or Animal Crossing, it'll be right up your alley. Although I sing its praises, if you have a whacked out sense of empathy like I do, this is also the most evil, gut-wrenching, depressing game in the world. I treat it like exposure therapy. I need to learn that sometimes the worms don't get to live. On today's episode of I Have a Weirdly Specific Pair of Earrings to Match Every Single Topic I Ever Cover, we got worms. I made these nearly a year ago, that's how long I've been pissing about rewriting this video for. The first Viva Piñata game was released on November 9th, 2006, first for the Xbox 360, then PC around a year later in November 2007. It was developed by Rare and published by Microsoft Game Studios. Rare is a game development company based in Leicestershire, England, and they're behind games such as Banjo-Kazooie, Sea of Thieves, Conker's Bad Fur Day, and the Donkey Kong Country series. Side note, everything I learn about Conker's Bad Fur Day is against my will. I always assumed The Great Mighty Pooh was like a cover or something. No, that's an actual part of the game, and the whole game is like that.
I am the Great Mighty Pooh, and I'm going to throw my shit at you.
Viva Piñata was conceptualized in 2002 for the Pocket PC when Rare was still affiliated with Nintendo. However, it eventually ended up being developed for the Xbox 360. The game was announced in March 2006 and released 8 months later. If you need to feel old today, this game was announced 2 days before I was born, and yes, I did make that fact my entire personality as a kid. The game sold about 500,000 copies in its first year and later went on to sell about 1.5 million. This was about the amount they expected, so not exactly a flop, yet they still wanted to work on an improved version of the game. But the next installment of the franchise wouldn't quite be that. Party Animals, to put it kindly, is borderline Mario Party rip-off shovelware. This minigame collection was released in October 2007, also for the Xbox 360, and was developed by Creme Studios with very little input from Rare. After this, in September 2008, the final 2 Viva Piñata games were released, Trouble in Paradise on the 2nd and Pocket Paradise on the 5th. Trouble in Paradise is widely regarded as the best Viva Piñata game, and I definitely agree. Instead of a brand new game, it was more of an upgrade to the original game, with 28 new piñatas, 2 new areas, a just for fun game mode, a few mini-games, and just general quality of life improvements. Most of the new features were ones that were intended to be added to the original game but had to be cut due to time constraints. Pocket Paradise, on the other hand, was a DS version of Viva Piñata, fairly similar to the original game but just adjusted to the graphic capabilities of the DS. An exact reason why Viva Piñata never had any releases after this is unknown, but some say it was because Rare was reassigned to focus on Connect. Whatever the reason, Viva Piñata hasn't had a new installment in nearly 17 years, with the exception of it being featured on the Xbox One game compilation Rare Replay, and in 2019 Viva Piñata and Trouble in Paradise were both enhanced to 4K for the Xbox One X. Viva Piñata is a gardening simulator game in which you take over a rundown and destroyed garden after the previous owner, Jardinero, could no longer look after it. Building the garden up again and growing new plants can attract piñatas to come and live in your garden. Meanwhile, an antagonistic group try and sabotage your efforts by poisoning your piñatas, breaking your fences, and more. It's pretty reminiscent of real gardening. You have to deal with pests, rivalry between piñatas, sickness, and handling each piñata's individual needs so they don't leave or die. It's impossible to maintain happiness in every single piñata species at the same time, so you'll have to get used to piñatas coming and going. At points it's a constant barrage of alerts saying your piñatas are ill, your plants are dying, your piñatas are fighting, an NPC has gotten itself trapped inside a fence or something stupid, etc, etc. So it's constant maintenance basically. Do not get attached to your piñatas, and especially do not name them unless you hate yourself, because they will get eaten, leave your garden, or you might have no choice but to sell them to progress. Your garden is made up of just over 1,000 square pinometers of land at its largest, and certain piñatas require a certain percentage of the land as grass, long grass, dirt, snow, sand or water. The chippopotamus requires your garden to be 70% water to romance, so have fun digging the entire thing up just for one piñata. Anyway, I think that's all the hard parts of the game out of the way. The game has currency, which is chocolate coins, which you can spend in the shops on seeds, piñatas, buildings, upgrades, you can hire workers, you can bribe people, and more. There's also a level system with XP represented by petals lighting up on a flower in the top right corner, which doubles as a clock because the game has a day-night cycle as well as a weather cycle. Leveling up adds new things to the shops for you to buy, and it will sometimes attract new piñatas. The maximum level in Viva Piñata is 108, and in Trouble in Paradise it's 196. Bit random, I don't know why you can't just round it up to 200, that's annoying me. At the start of the game, Lifos gives you a journal. This contains an encyclopedia which gives you information about piñatas, plants, items, characters, buildings and more. You can check a grid of your garden and the percentages of different surface types and how much space each item in your garden takes up. There's an event log, a list of your resident piñatas, a list of awards, your player stats like time spent and the value of your garden, there are logs of your alerts and Lifos's gossip. There are also Xbox achievements you can get alongside the awards in the journal. The game is played in first person, that or like you're just a sentient cursor. You can move this cursor around the garden to select different piñatas and plants. You can also get out tools like a shovel or a watering can. As for the other games, Viva Piñata Trouble in Paradise was more of a passion project than anything, as opposed to being made because of high sales or high demand. Rather than a sequel, it was more of an upgrade to Viva Piñata, adding all of the features that were meant to be in the first game but had to be cut. Some of these additions include 28 new types of piñata for a total of 88, or 97 if you count each colour of flutterscotch as an individual species. New areas known as the Piñatic and the Dessert Desert, where you can bait and trap piñatas to add to your garden. There are also new exclusive variants of piñatas, like the blue Pretztail, essentially an Arctic fox. The trick stick was added, which allows your piñatas to learn tricks, which gives them more value. There was a just for fun mode added, essentially creative mode. You had unlimited coins and you didn't have to worry about things like ruffians or weeds. But with the limit of things you can have in your garden due to the Xbox 360's capabilities, you can't really use this feature to its full potential, which is a bummer, because it would be really nice to have more than like 5 trees. The Comic Sans font was changed. There were 2 new minigames added, the Great Piñata Paper Chase and P-Factor. And some quality of life improvements based on criticism included faster autosave times, easier menus to navigate, and being able to exit the boundaries of the gardens, plus many more features, too many to list. In terms of the minigames, the Great Piñata Paper Chase is a minigame which 4 piñatas participate in. The track has lots of different types of terrain, and your piñata will run fastest on their preferred terrain. You can also pick up bombs to throw. And P-Factor is a fashion show type thing where different judges will rate your piñatas. There are 36 judges to choose from and they each like different piñatas. I kind of hated this game as a kid because they'll flat out just insult your piñatas and then the one that gets last place cries and I feel so guilty. The music slaps though. Pocket Paradise is self-explanatory. It's basically a condensed down version of Viva Piñata, so it's able to run on the DS and be portable. It stays fairly faithful to the content of Viva Piñata, but it's 2D and you kind of view your garden from above. I think they did a really good job of making it work on the DS without changing too many features, but because of its nature, it's only something I play when I'm out and about, not at home. I have very vivid memories of getting yelled at by a man in some tractor showroom place for playing this because I wasn't paying attention. Like, sorry, I don't care about tractors, Jesus Christ. The Xbox games feel very immersive, like you're really a part of the world, whereas Pocket Paradise feels more like you're playing God. It almost has this kind of eerie vibe about it, like it's too quiet, but then a lot of DS games are like that. One thing I really love about the Xbox Viva Piñata games is the sound design, and Pocket Paradise is just kind of lacking in this department. For a DS game, it's amazing. For a Viva Piñata game, it doesn't quite compare. But hey, it's a masterpiece compared to Party Animals. Party Animals is a Viva Piñata themed minigame collection based on the TV show. You can play as Fergie Fudgehog, Hudson Horstachio, Paulie Pretztail and Franklin Fizzly Bear, as well as like gender bends of them with eyelashes to make 8 characters total. The main bulk of the minigames are these games that are essentially Mario Kart without the kart. Your piñata runs through different tracks and you can pick up different power-ups to speed yourself up or slow other players down. I never had this game, but honestly this looks so fun. I can appreciate a good Mario Kart rip-off here and there. These are broken up by other kinds of minigames, including a who can burp the longest contest. Yeah. In terms of the good parts, it has its own theme song and the narration is pretty fun and charming.
What kind of daunting dangers, terrible traps and horrible hazards await our contestants?
Well, there's some horrible coffee on sale at the cafe.
There are more than 40 minigames, however some of them are like the same game with only minor changes. There's a pin the tail on the Zumbug game, and then there's Zumbugs in space, where you pin the tail on a Zumbug in space. Overall, I don't think it's as bad of a game as people say it is, but I don't know because I haven't played it. But I think I will be sticking to Mario Party, thank you. So from this point forward, know if I say Viva Piñata, I'm talking about the original game and Trouble in Paradise, and if there are any differences between the two, I'll make that clear. Piñatas are the animals, essentially, that you can attract to your garden in different ways. Each piñata's name is a pun based on a type of candy or dessert, and an animal, for example, the Rorio or the Fudgehog. Fun fact, Rare actually had to change a lot of the names after realising certain sweets didn't exist outside of the UK and the names wouldn't make sense to worldwide audiences. Each piñata has a list of appearance requirements, visit requirements, residence requirements, and romance requirements, with each getting progressively more difficult. These can include things like growing a certain plant, having a certain piñata as resident, eating a certain plant or piñata, fighting another piñata, progressing in the game, for example completing the Tower of Sour causes the Galagugu to appear, having a certain percentage of dirt, grass, long grass, snow, sand or water in your garden being worth a certain amount of coins. It goes on, which I really love because it adds a ton of variety to the game. Sometimes they even have to wear certain accessories to romance. The ladies just can't resist these glasses. On that note, breeding or romancing is quite an important mechanic in these games. To get 2 piñatas to romance, first you have to meet their romance requirements, like wearing cool glasses. You then have to build the piñatas a house, then direct one piñata to the other. After they go into their house, it opens a mini-game where you have to play as one piñata and avoid bombs, whilst also reaching the other piñata within a time limit. This is a very accurate representation of how hard it is to get laid. They will then do a romance dance, a fully animated dance cutscene with music. I love the dedication to being family friendly. I always found the minigames super difficult as a kid, but did you know there's a different camera angle you can switch to which makes it way easier? Because I didn't, for years. All of the minigames kind of make a picture out of the bombs and the different colours of the terrain. The Smellbuzz minigame makes a sniffing nose, and the Catfly one is just a pile of shit. Usually the rarer the piñata, the harder this minigame is. After the romance dance, Storkos will deliver an egg which will hatch into a baby piñata. The piñata will then cocoon and become an adult. Once your piñatas have romanced once, you can feed them a romance candy, which means you don't have to meet their individual romance requirements every time. Sour piñatas are piñatas that visit your garden and act similar to ruffians, who I'll go over later. Sour piñatas are regular piñatas that were turned sour by Professor Pester to ruin the reputation of piñatas, but he couldn't even handle them, so they're like just kind of feral. However, you can tame these piñatas and they'll actually be a huge help to your garden. The sour shelly bean spits out sour seeds and candies and eats flower seeds, and in Trouble in Paradise it spits out weed seeds and attacks your flowers. Once tamed, shelly beans will eat weed seeds. The The sour sherbet makes piñatas ill, and once tamed, it distracts Dastardos momentarily. The sour corolla eats sick piñatas, and once tamed, it also distracts Dastardos. The sour profiterole eats flowers, and once tamed, it eats the dirt piles dug up from the mine. The sour maca-raccoon eats eggs, and once tamed, it finds romance candies for you. Such a cute little guy. The sour crocodile scares helpers away, and once tamed, its tears fertilize plants. The sour malawolf scares visitors away from your garden, and once tamed, it scares off ruffians. And the sour bonboon starts fights, but once tamed, it does a silly dance to distract other piñatas from fighting. Then Trouble in Paradise adds even more sour piñatas. I know this is a long list, but this is like the most interesting thing in the world for me, I'm sorry. The sour lemoning spoils produce and fruit, and once tamed, it turns sour candy into happy candy. The sour small pion makes piñatas unhappy and scares off ruffians once tamed. The smell bug cock blocks your piñatas, literally it stops them mid-romance, and it spits out smelly candy. Once tamed, it also scares off ruffians. And finally, the limosaurus. It destroys structures in your garden, but once tamed, it headbutts Professor Pester and sends him blasting off again, if you will. Sorry for all the Pokemon analogies in this video, I know there's a lot. Even though Viva Piñata is kind of closer to Animal Crossing, if anything. Once each sour piñata is tamed, you can add to your Tower of Sour, which is a totem pole of different sour piñatas, and you can toggle it on and off to stop these piñatas from returning to your garden. You can also buy the pieces of the totem. The piñatas definitely make this game. They all have their own animations and sounds, and it's so precious. When you first attract a piñata, it plays an animation to introduce them, and they're just so full of character. This was definitely one of the most memorable parts of the game. Many piñatas have rivalries with other piñata species and will try and fight them. The loser of the fight gets sick and needs to be healed. Piñatas who win lots of fights can get medals as an accessory. This is a requirement for certain party requests, so you have to force them to get into fights to complete the game. Piñatas can get sick from losing fights, eating sour candy, eating poisonous plants, being enclosed in too small of an area, or being whacked with the shovel one too many times. You'll have to call the doctor to heal them, or Dastardos will come and beat them with a stick. If you have a tunicorn in the garden, it can also heal piñatas. If a piñata is smashed, they don't die, they just respawn as a non-resident and you have to tame them again. Each piñata has a happiness meter, also known as a candiosity meter in Trouble in Paradise. If a piñata gets too sad, it'll leave the garden. What makes a piñata sad can depend on the species, but usually it's things like being watered, being beaten with a shovel, removing its sick outfits, or being trampled by larger piñatas. And you can make them happier by naming them, feeding them something they like, or feeding it a happy candy. There's a food chain of piñatas referred to as the donut of life in-game. Visiting piñatas will eat your resident piñatas, but resident piñatas will only eat other piñatas if they're told to. Some piñatas of note include the Dragon Ash, which is often considered the hardest piñata in the game to get, and lore-wise it's relevant because it's the only piñata the previous owner of the garden was never able to attract. Essentially the equivalent of a legendary Pokemon. I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep talking about Pokemon. You can only get it by purchasing a mine and hiring diggerlings to search for it, which can take literally forever. I've still never gotten one. You can only get one Dragon Ash per garden, and having one scares away any sour piñatas. Also the screen shakes when it walks, and it's huge, so it gets real annoying real fast. Trouble in Paradise then added a second super rare piñata, the Chocolodocus. Depending on the items you use, you can customize the features it will have, which I think is so cool. Diggerlings can dig up 3 different colours of bone from the mine, green, red and blue. You'll then need to get Bart to tinker these bones. The first bone you tinker will turn into a skull. A red one will become a Triceratops-like skull, a blue one will become a Brontosaurus skull, or Diplodocus, I guess. The wiki says Brontosaurus, but why would it be called a Chocolodocus if it's not a Diplodocus? I don't know. Anyway, and a green one will become a Stegosaurus skull. The second bone you tinker determines the type of tail, and the third bone you tinker determines its colour. You then need a piece of amber, which can be obtained by dropping 9,999 chocolate coins into the wishing well. You then need to put the free bones and the amber into the garden store, and eventually an egg will appear. To add more depth to the game, I'm trying not to say shiny Pokemon, but yeah, wildcards, variants, and evolutions are essentially the shiny Pokemon of Viva Piñata. Variants are piñatas different from their default colour, usually obtained by feeding the piñata a specific food. For example, feeding a worm a turnip turns it purple. Variants can also be found in the Piñatic and Desert Desert in Trouble in Paradise. Evolutions turn piñatas into a completely different species. Sometimes it just involves feeding a piñata, for example feeding a newt gat a chili turns it into a salamango. Or there are more specific requirements that, let's be honest, you wouldn't figure out on your own without reading the wiki. For example, to turn a taffly into a red hot, you need to instruct it to fly into a fire and then water it with the watering can. And to get a Twingersnap, you need to breed 2 serpents, then hit the egg with a shovel just before it hatches to get a snake with 2 heads. You can then breed 2 Twingersnaps and do the exact same thing to their egg to get a snake with 4 heads, which is fittingly named 4 heads. And finally, wildcard piñatas can be obtained through breeding and are worth significantly more money than non-wildcard piñatas. It's pretty difficult to get a wildcard in Viva Piñata, but in Trouble in Paradise you can get a wildcard bonus if you have 6 or more of the same species and collect every heart in the romance minigame. Usually the odds are around 1 in 10,000 though. In Trouble in Paradise, each piñata has 3 different wildcard variants, which can include things like extra horns, different tail shapes, bumps, a mohawk. You can get cats with extra ears, just like in real life. It goes on and on. I love the attention to detail and how creative they got with all these extra features, especially considering most players won't ever get a wildcard unless they're actively trying, so it's really cool to see so much detail go into such a small part of the game. As easy as it is having a wiki to tell you exactly how to get each piñata, honestly it's way more fun if you just experiment and feed piñatas and see what happens. It's super exciting when you just randomly get a variant without meaning to, and I think these features add a ton to the game. Viva Piñata has a variety of debatably human characters who shape the lore of the game and help or hinder you in your garden. Professor Pester is the main antagonist of the game and the TV series. He comes into your garden at random to smash your most expensive piñata, and you have to bribe him with coins to get him to leave. His minions are known as ruffians, who come into your garden and fill your ponds, open your gates, destroy fences, cough up toxic candy, and get into fights with piñatas. Honestly, it's hard to be mad when you just look over and there's some guy angrily shoveling dirt into your pond. Lifos is the first character you meet in Viva Piñata, and when you first start the game she's just crying there in an empty garden which used to belong to her dad. Throughout the game she'll give you advice, as well as gifting you items required to progress in the game. If there's one thing Lifos loves, it's spreading misinformation, and a lot of the time she will just flat out lie about how to get certain piñatas. Viva Piñata is a bit like Terraria in the sense that if you don't have the wiki open constantly, you're gonna be a bit lost, especially when the characters in-game are literally trying to misguide you. I suppose that's kind of the fun of it though, seeing what's true and what isn't, and some franchises are famous for their playground rumours, like Pokemon. Seedos is a character who enters the garden from time to time and gives you seeds. If you hit him with a shovel one too many times, he starts planting weeds all over your garden. Also, he lives in a swamp and changed his name because he just likes seeds that much. Storkos delivers eggs to your garden after you romance 2 piñatas. Mummy, sorry. Dustados essentially puts your piñatas down if they're sick for too long. When I say put them down, I mean beat them with a stick. He then eats their life candy, which is essentially their soul. He was turned sour after Professor Pester fed him a sour candy. Jardinero is the guy that kind of connects all of these characters. Seedos, Lifos and Storkos are his children, and it's implied that Dustados is as well, but he doesn't recognise him anymore. Professor Pester was also formerly his student. He was the previous owner of the garden and still lives nearby. Also, he's just like kind of an asshole and constantly talks about how much of a better job at gardening he did than you. He's also a self-proclaimed expert romance dancer. Me too, buddy, me too. And Langston Lickatoad manages Piñata Central, and he has more of a main role in the TV show than the games. Despite being a piñata, he can still speak English, and he allows you to send piñatas to parties. He also sells traps to bring piñatas back from the piñatic and desert desert. When piñatas are sent to parties, they return. It's not like a death sentence. You don't get to send your horstachio to the glue factory. When they return, they'll have increased happiness because they're masochists, I guess. They'll also return with candy or chocolate coins, and in Trouble in Paradise, their value increases. There's also another Liquor Toad character in the show called Spankston for some reason. I'll go into the backstory of these characters in the lore section of the video because yes, we need one of those. And then there are the villager characters who run shops and offer services for your garden. Lottie owns Costelot's store, which is sort of the general convenience store type thing, where you can buy and sell seeds, fruit, vegetables, produce, toys, paving, decorations, fences, candy, fertilizer, and you can upgrade your tools. Lottie is like kind of obsessed with money, and she's also married to Willy Builder, allegedly. We get this information from Lefos and she cannot be trusted. Willy Builder, who I just mentioned, builds houses for piñatas to romance in, which you'll inevitably have to smash because there's only room for a few, and render them homeless. He can also build the mine and houses for helpers. He can also build a mystery home used to crossbreed a raspberry and a swanana to make a pixie, which is a deformed flying pig that can't walk properly, and most of the other piñatas run away from it, and it will try and fight its own parents. Why did they add that? I feel so bad for it. Who up building their Willy? Ivor Bargain is a beggar who shows up at the garden every few days to ask for money. If you give him less than 1,000 chocolate coins, he'll keep returning, but if you give him 1,000 or more, he'll open up a store, humbly named after himself. Only in the original Viva Piñata and Pocket Paradise though. In Trouble in Paradise, he lives inside a well and Lottie sells all of the things he used to. Always the big brands stealing business from the smaller ones, he has to live in a well now because you stole his job. Ivor Bargain sells loads of useful things like shovel and watering can upgrades. Any piñata species that you previously had as resident can be tracked down again and bought from Gretchen Fetcham. She offers standard and express speed hunting services. In Pocket Paradise, she also handles the services of the post office and paper pets. Miss Petula runs paper pets. In the original game, she sells pet piñatas and farm animal piñatas, as well as accessories. But in Trouble in Paradise, she only sells accessories. The fishbowl on her head is a reference to the fact that aquatic piñatas like fish and sharks were intended to be added to the game, but never were. Arthur Stout operates Arthur's Inn, where you can hire out workers. He has apparently spent many hours studying milk. Sprinklings help water your plants for you, gatherlings sell produce from the garden, weedlings kill any weeds in your garden, watchlings and night watchlings keep pests out of your garden, and digglings work in the mine. At any point you can sack these workers and they react like you've just ruined their entire lives, and I always feel so guilty. Fanny Franco runs the post office. You can crate piñatas and items and store them in her shop, and you can also get piñatas you catch from the Arctic or desert from her in Trouble in Paradise. You could also send items to other players over Xbox Live. Doc Pachingo, or Patch for short, is a doctor who heals sick piñatas. You have to call him quickly before Dastardos beats the piñata to death instead. And finally there's Bart the Tinkerer, who can turn certain items into other items like honey into medicine or a carrot into carrot cake. There are bronze, silver and gold tickets you can buy, and a more expensive ticket means a higher chance of the transformation working. Bronze tickets only have a 25% chance of working, and if it doesn't work, you lose the original item. And those are all of the characters worth mentioning, but there are some more less relevant ones like the judges and the minigames. The games and the TV show both have their own storyline, but let's go over the games first. So we start with Jardinero. He used to own the garden and was regarded as the best gardener on Piñata Island, who could attract every single piñata except for one, the Dragon Ash. He got married to a ship hand who transported piñatas to parties via boat before Piñata Central was built, and she's just referred to as Mother. They go on and have 4 children in age order: Stardos, later Dastardos, Lefos, Storkos, and Sidos, later Sidos. Jardinero took on someone called Lester as a student and taught him about gardening. Lester wasn't exactly a model student and never did his work properly. One day he told Jardinero he knew of a way to find the Dragon Ash, so Jardinero and Mother set out to a secret island to find it. Whilst they're away, Lester, later known as Pester, destroyed the garden and tricked Stardos into eating a sour candy and becoming Destardos. And somehow Giardinero doesn't recognise his own son anymore and thinks he's lost in the jungle, even though there's this guy whose name is only different by 2 letters who just happens to keep hanging around in the garden. Must be a coincidence. Giardinero had trouble walking due to their boat crashing during this trip, and he was no longer able to repair the garden. Mother was swept out to sea during this trip, but Giardinero was quote-unquote sure she would be fine, and thinks she must be having quite an adventure. Whatever helps you sleep at night, babes. It's not really implied how you arrive at the garden, but you take it over when you arrive at the start of the game. Presumably pretty soon after the incident, considering Lefos is just standing there crying at the start of the game and the ruffians are still hanging around. Basically it just seems like we're doing free labour. I don't know, I wish they expanded on that more in the game. Unless I'm missing something, that is. What are we doing here and why have we been roped into gardening? Lefos asks us for help at the start and then we do all the work whilst she yaps. Rare also worked very closely with 4Kids to create a Viva Piñata TV show, which in turn went on to influence future game releases. This show first aired on August 26, 2006, which you might notice is actually before the first game came out, leading some people to believe the game was based on the show when it's actually the other way around. I watched every episode of the show for this video and I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened. I was so zoned out the entire time. I just didn't pay attention to any of it, I'm sorry. The game follows Piñata characters who, unlike in the game, can talk and have alliterative names like Fergie Fudgehog, Franklin Fizzly Bear, Paulie Pretztail, Ella Elefanilla, and Hudson Horsestachio. When I first heard Fergie Fudgehog's voice, I was like, oh, I recognise that voice. They must have gotten someone pretty famous on, if I recognise it. No, you know where I recognised it from? Ed from Dinosaur King. Most of the plot seems to revolve around the whole sending piñatas to parties mechanic of the game, and a lot of the episodes focus on Fergie and Paulie's aversion to being sent to parties. It's shown in the show that piñatas return from parties but battered and they need to be repaired. The game also features Professor Pester as an antagonist, but it's not really implied what his motives are, considering the human characters don't really play a part in the show, except for Lefos appearing briefly in the intro. So I don't know if the lore is the same, it just kind of seems like he's evil for the sake of being evil. The show went on to have 2 seasons and 52 episodes total. Also, I love the narrator for the TV show intro.
Welcome to picturesque Piñata Island.
It's giving that one zesty Pinocchio movie.
Father, when can I leave to be on my own?
There's disappointingly little in the way of Viva Piñata merch. The only officially released toys that I'm aware of are the 2007 Burger King toys. These plastic toys split in 2 and had different mini toys on the inside. There are 8 different piñatas and 16 different mini toys inside them, 2 possible ones you could get for each piñata. The piñatas available include the Fizzly Bear, Moobar, Horsestachio, Fudgehog, Sour Maca Raccoon, Crocodile, Elefanilla and Sparrowmint. Inside the Sparrowmint you could get either a Viva Piñata hacky sack or a Horsestachio light. Inside the Maca Raccoon you could get a block puzzle and whatever the hell a party knocker is. Inside the Fudgehog you could get a kaleidoscope or a roll of stickers. The Elefanilla had a frisbee and a kazoo. The Moobar had an Elefanilla launcher or a Horsestachio viewer, I'm not really sure what that is. The Fizzly Bear came with a flipbook or a 3D puzzle. The Crocodile came with a worm yo-yo and a maze craze. I assume that's one of those little clear plastic mazes with the ball inside. And the Horsestachio had a fortune spinner and a lenticular card. I remember being so upset I wasn't born a few years earlier so I could have gotten these. How dare I be a baby in 2007, goodness. Other than that, there's a special release of the game that came in a tin and a Viva Piñata branded 24 karat gold ingot. You know, just your typical video game merch. There are 2 different vinyl records, there are a few logo shirts and hoodies available, as well as these Wanna Romance Dance prints, and a poster which only 995 were ever printed of. Trouble in Paradise has a feature known as Piñata Vision, which uses the Xbox Vision camera to scan collectible cards and give you things within the game. So I guess that counts as a type of merch too. Besides that, there's plenty of cool Viva Piñata fan merch on websites like Etsy and Redbubble, most of which are crochet patterns. I'm sure there's probably more official merch floating around here and there, but it's not enough. I found a picture in my bedroom when I was younger. I used to print out pictures of piñatas and like stick them on my wall because that was the only way I could possibly have merch. In terms of advertising, there's a Viva Piñata TV commercial that was kind of creepy.
You could break me open and take my candy, but wouldn't you like something better?
My guy sounds like a predator, get away from those kids. In December 2006, in order to promote the game, a giant Horstachio statue was built in Six Flags Mexico. It was 48 feet tall and 52 feet long, and took the record for the world's largest piñata at the time. You know what the current record holder is? A giant Prime bottle. So you know how I mentioned that there's hope for a new Viva Piñata game? Well, not quite an official one, but a fan game is in development known as Return to Paradise. Return to Paradise is going to be a completely free game. It's 100% funded out of pocket by the developers and by Patreon donations. And they have a Discord server where fans can give input into the game development process. They've designed nearly 100 brand new piñatas, and they're planning 305 total on top of the original 88, and I'm so impressed with how authentic the art is to the original game's style. There's a cockatoo and a capybara and so many cats. When I was researching, I started crying looking at all of the designs because I got a bit too excited. So yeah, I'll put the Patreon and Discord links in the bio of this video. Please go support them. I need this more than I've ever needed anything in my entire life, and no, I'm not being dramatic. To end this video, I just wanted to list off a few fun facts I couldn't find anywhere else in the script to put. Maybe I'll make a full Viva Piñata facts video one day, maybe not, who knows? During development, Viva Piñata went through a few different names, including Piñata Paradise, Microsoft Piñata Simulator, and just Piñata. Some characters appeared in the TV show before being added to the games, including the Jelly. Every piñata was voiced by employees at Rare with no voice acting experience. You can tell they're having fun with it, which adds a lot of charm to the game. Viva Piñata was conceptualized when one of the founders of Rare saw a hummingbird hawk moth in his garden and wanted to work out how to attract more of them. Some of the items in Viva Piñata are Banjo-Kazooie Easter eggs, including them being carved into a mountain like Mount Rushmore. There are these like absolutely horrifying official Viva Piñata fursuits. The journal in the game is written by Leafos, and the entry for the pink flutterscotch describes her trying to kiss a girl, but she ran away because Leafos ate too many onion sandwiches. So Sapphic Leafos is kind of implied to be canon. Maybe Viva Piñata was ahead of its time in more things than just graphics. Ivor Bargain has 2 mouths. There was a Rare themed cookbook with at least one Viva Piñata themed recipe that I know of, and all of the vegan recipes were labelled as Leafos approved. Even the Great Mighty Pooh gets its own recipe. There was a flash game developed by 4 kids called Viva Piñata Super Candy Stash. As far as I'm aware, it's similar to Bloons Tower Defense. A man once proposed to his wife over Viva Piñata multiplayer. How cute is that? And Worms used the same squeaky sound effect as My Little Pony. So all in all, what does Viva Piñata teach us? That it's okay to hit your pets with a shovel? In all seriousness, I wholeheartedly believe Viva Piñata would have thrived if it was made in the 2020s, with the rise of cozy games and farming simulators, stuff like New Horizons. The Xbox 360 just couldn't handle the full potential of what Viva Piñata could have been. But I am so hyped for Return to Paradise. Usually I'm skeptical about work in progress games because they almost always never end up happening, but Return to Paradise is already a good way into development and we're getting updates regularly, so fingers crossed. If you'd like to support the channel, the link to my Patreon will be in the description for bonus content, including a makeup tutorial for this very cunty fudgehog makeup, if I do say so myself. I didn't mean to do a full head reveal there, I'm sorry. And if you'd like to see any more content like this, feel free to like and subscribe and drop any video ideas in the comments. As always, I love you guys and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Goodbye!